And so I totally agree. 30 seconds is too long. 20 seconds is probably too long. You should be able to do it in less, 15 seconds, 10 seconds, in one sentence, right? And to distill that into one sentence takes a lot of thought. But once you figure that out, then it makes everything downstream a lot easier because it narrows your focus.
The fact that you said cold calling is not dead. Like I'm in love with that.
Are we opening up a new can of worms here?
Well, we can take a little bit of a detour from a success rate. I think cold calling is pretty tough to get past the front office staff who's picking up the phone. Negative. The positive is exactly what you just said, that if you can get past that person, that front office staff, and if you can reach the president of the university or the principal or whoever your main stakeholder is, if you can get them to lean in less than 15 seconds, then you have clearly demonstrated who you are, how you can help them, and what your transformational offer is. So that, in and of itself, is a really challenging exercise for people who are trying to get good at this. We happen to do that through LinkedIn. We have what we call a raise your hand campaign. And we build the list of people we want to talk to. We put together an amazing profile for our clients that is a sales funnel and not their resume. And then we start reaching out to people. And if that messaging is clear, then it's my belief, if the messaging is clear when you reach out via LinkedIn to the right person and they see your profile is credible, then they are more likely to lean in and say, I'll spend 15 minutes on the phone with you.
Right.
You're taking it one step further.
Yeah, and I love the LinkedIn approach. It's the approach that I use personally. A lot of it obviously gets generated because I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm constantly posting, but I know what happens. Somebody sees a post and it resonates. It aligns with their thinking. They go and check my experience, my background, my profile, and they're like, oh, this aligns with somebody I want to speak with. And so either they will reach out to me directly through DM, or I will reach out to them because I see an alignment as well. But I would argue that if you really want to take that to the next level, you cold call that person. One of the strategies that I use, this was with a Canadian-based ed tech company that was trying to get into the US market and had faltered a few times, just couldn't get in. And we built a strategy around proximity. And what I mean by that is they were literally 10 minutes from the US border. And, you know, the US is a big market. There are over 14,000 school districts. If you're a school district that's based on the other side of like Syracuse or Rochester, New York, what's the incentive to go and try to get a client in California?
Right.
Or Texas? No, you start with New York. And a lot of people would argue, well, wow, New York, that's the hardest state to get into with the BOCES and the RICs and the regulations and then this and then that. But my argument was like, no, this is, first of all, it's the least expensive in the sense of you can literally get in your car and go to each one of these school districts in upstate New York. For anybody who knows New York, most of the school districts outside of New York City are very small.
Right.
Rural, right? You can literally hit up 4 or 5, maybe even 6 school districts in a day. So that's what we did. Got in our car and drove from one school district to the other. So instead of actually cold calling over the phone, we cold called in person.
Take it one step further.
Take it one step further. And now there's no way you can do this with a large school district in New York City or it's not like you're going to walk into CPS but for these small rural districts, this Canadian showing up, right? And I would show up with like maple cookies.
You guys are the nicest.
Right. And so I really believe that cold calling is not dead. And if you can take it one step further and cold call in person, I think there's real value in that. As long as you're very honest and upfront when you show up, people, generally speaking, will welcome you with open arms, because nobody does that anymore. We've moved away to these Zoom calls, to AI, to automated communications. People crave face-to-face contact. I think that's why we're seeing this resurgence of conferences right, left, and center, because people want that face-to-face contact. And so I think there's an opportunity here for, especially if you're a small startup and you're founder-led, to go and actually just show up and say, hey, can we have a conversation about whatever it is that you're, helping? Maybe it's MTSS, maybe it's, mental health, or maybe it's assessment, or whatever it is. I think there's a world where, I think we're in a world right now that welcomes that, whereas a few years ago, people would have sort of shied away from people just showing up at their school.
And let's be clear, the conversation could be around coaching. Tell me what your challenges are, and let's have a strategy session right here, right now. Boom, let's go. Yep. It's people who are listening to this later probably won't see my face, but I was laughing because as you were saying that, I was thinking of Sebastian Maniscalco, the comedian, who does this whole bit on, how when we were growing up, we'd be sitting around and,
the door,
somebody knock on the door,
right? Aren't you embarrassed?
Yeah, and we, your mom would bring the Sanka, you welcome them in, she'd get you out of the way.
Duncan Hines.
Yeah, now, and this happened to us a couple of days ago. Somebody knocked on our door in our apartment building, and we're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What do we do? You open the door first. Yeah. Everybody gets down, and you army crawl. So now, I'm thinking about what you're saying. Do you know Rose? Do you know our mutual friend Rose? I believe you know Rose. Rose is here in the chat here, and I don't know if Rose is available right now, but I'm going to try something here. And I've got Rose because we were texting via WhatsApp. Let's just get this room filled with Canadians. I don't know if Rose is up for it, but Rose, I have just sent you a link to join us. And Rose said, love the strength of Founder's story, being the fire. She has such a way with words, being the fire that lights the pipeline, ignites the connection, awesome takeaway and scalable approach. And there's our friend Rose. Rose has been through the Ed Sales Elevation experience and is a big fan and proponent of what we do. Let's see if she can join. Rose, you're welcome to join whenever you want. The fact of the matter is, whether you do this via LinkedIn, whether you do this on the phone, whether you do this in person, is most likely we are surrounded by Canadians. I love this. Do you know Ben Buchwald? Nope. I launched Ellie.com 22 years ago in Winnipeg. We still don't have any salespeople at the company. I still lead a lot of demos each week and still love it. We do no outbound sales. Everything is word of mouth. Inbound sales, product-led growth, and founder-led growth has been what has got us into thousands of schools in the U.S. and Canada. Ben, hold on, Ben. I got something for you. Ben. It's for you, Ben. That's for you. That's all of the ed tech space cheering for you. Now, when you are doing founder-led sales, LinkedIn, email, phone, in person with your maple cookies, you're going to get objections.
Of course.
There will be objections. How do you map your objections? How do you think about those objections? How do you learn from those objections? There is Rose.
Hey.
Hey, Rose.
Hi.
Do you guys know each other?
No.
Not yet.
Do we?
We will.
No. All right.
This is amazing. This conversation while you're working, I'm like listening to what you're saying, and I'm like working on all of my founder stories as we're talking. So I'm like in it. Thank you guys.
Welcome, Rose. Rose, tell Karim and everybody else who you are real quickly, and then let's hop into this discussion of founder-led sales here so people stop delegating.
Excellent. I am Rose Hastreiter. I am the founder of L3C Learning and Leadership. We've been around for a long time. I build experiences that help people reconnect with their time and discover their purpose and basically strengthen their connection to each other. So that is my number one thing, is all about connection. So all the projects we do are about helping people develop skills that lead them to better collaboration connection. Josh, working with 3E has been absolutely amazing because it's a constant iteration of like getting better, evolving our sales process and our, so that this conversation came at the right time. Just thank you both for holding it today.
So Rose, just because I'm only know a limited amount of places in your wonderful country, can you tell us where you are so Karim knows where you are?
Karim, I understand you're in Montreal. I'm about 7 hours away by car. So bonjour, Montreal.
Bonjour.
Southwest New Brunswick, in the beautiful town of St. George, Brunswick, on the Bay of Fundy. I'm originally from Vancouver. So go Canucks.
Okay. Yes. You're a long way from home.
I am. I moved here many years ago to expand my company. I spend a lot of my time in the States. So again, the conversation around our different regions and how we move into those markets is also very valuable for a lot of us here in Canada, because we have family, we have friends, we have networks all across North America. So,
do you know your fellow maritimer Julia Dexter from Shoelace Learning?
The name sounds familiar. I don't think I know him personally.
I gotta introduce the two of you. Yeah, she's built. So Shoelace Learning is a great reading application for middle schoolers, where they've been able to combine reading, language comprehension, and I believe not Roblox, but what's the other one? It escapes me right now. Anyway, they'll come back to me. They've got and they're running these wonderful tournaments to get kids to read. And so anyway, I'll put the two of you in touch.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we specialize in the workforce area. So everything you're speaking of, whether it's children K-12 or into the big kids, as I like to say, this conversation right now is so critical, because I think a lot of the solutions that founders have need to get to market. So again, thanks guys for holding this. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would put Karim, or I would put Rose, and I certainly would put Robert up against anybody in terms of speaking ability and willingness to listen. But those that does not come easy for everybody. So Rose, when you joined, I was basically asking Karim, like, what do you do with the feedback that you get when the feedback isn't always what you wanted to hear? How can you receive that feedback and then use that to build a better sales approach or to build a better product? How have you managed that in your current companies? Feedback.
My instinct says, I know we all want to say, well, actively listen and listen to understand, but I think there's the word of intention. It's like, come back to the basics. That's what I have to do, is I have to come back to the basics and go, where's that true north for me, my company? Like, where's the heart and the spirit and just the essence of the project? Like, where are we headed? In order for me to receive feedback, I need to check in on my own intention as to why I even asked for it in the first place and what's the outcome for the team. So that's kind of where my head goes, is to actively listen, but listen to understand that the intention of the feedback is often to help us meet that target. So listen with that open mind. It happens every day here at this company. It's like we're constantly iterating, and it's not always going to work. But there's a lovely saying, I think it's an old Japanese saying, which is, fall 7 times, stand up 8. It's like iteration is part of the process of evolving our sales process, and getting the right message to the right person at the right time. And I wish there was just a simple formula for that. And I think, Karim, everything you've noted here just resonates so deeply with me, because as a founder, we cannot stop learning. We cannot stop trying things like cold calling. Like, you just busted the myth for me, cold calling right there. You busted
Me
it.
too.
Yeah.
Out of the fucking water.
Because,
out of the water.
All right.
Karim, I'm curious to hear from you. Sometimes, going back to this concept of feedback, what do you think the stories are that us founders, that we tell ourselves, that are getting in our way? Like cold calling, we can't do that. That doesn't work. Like, what have you noticed about that?
I think ultimately a lot of this comes down to, how do you know that you know? Right? When we all have these assumptions and these myths that say, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that. And listen, I have 2 teenagers. Actually, so that's true. One's 18, the other one's 21. So my older one's not really a teenager anymore. And I'll put something out there, and they'll say, "Well, you can't do that," and I'm like, "Why not?" Right? And these assumptions started a long time ago, and cold calling is one of those assumptions where cold calling doesn't work. And I think at the end of the day, we have to constantly put ourselves in a position where we ask ourselves, how do we know that we know? And the feedback often that we get from prospects, from clients, what I think is super important about that feedback is really understanding the why behind that feedback. Because a lot of the feedback we'll get as a founder is, oh, you should build this feature, or you should build that feature, or you should do this and you should do that. And then you go out and build it, and all of a sudden it doesn't resonate. And the reason it doesn't resonate is you never understood the why. And that happens a lot in the sales process as well, right? In terms of objections. They'll say, oh, what about this? And what about that? And why not this? And if you don't dig in and really try to understand, why are they asking that question? Maybe they don't actually need that feature. Or maybe that's not the real problem they're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
You have to really unpack it and figure out, what is it ultimately that they're trying to solve for?
Mm-hmm.
And then that can become part of your iteration, both in terms of either your product or your sales process. And once you figure that out, once you understand the why, that's the unlock. Because now that whatever you build will apply to anybody who has that same why. And then, so you've identified the why, you've validated it, and then you build it, you test it out, and it works, then you amplify it, right? And that now becomes part of your sales process. And so in my mind, the feedback is so crucial, but it's even more important to unpack that feedback and understand what's behind the objections. Because what the prospect is telling you at that first level is never the real problem.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, let's talk real tactically here. How do you phrase that? Somebody gives you an objection, and how do you phrase it without sounding defensive, to really take it to the next level, to understand their why? Can you kind of role play a little bit here? Like, tell us how you would say something like that.
You generally have to be curious, right? So I was on a call earlier today with the district, and I was explaining to them that for a certain solution, they're going to have to assess the students, and they're going to have to use MAP scores. And then they were like, oh, we don't use MAP, we use iReady. I'm like, okay. And then we kept on going. And then we came back to it. I said, the question then become, the real issue wasn't about whether you're using MAP or you're using iReady to assess your students. The real issue underlying it all was, we hate to over-test kids,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We especially in the US, there is a massive amount of testing going on, standardized testing. It happens in September, October. It happens again mid-year, and then again at the end of the year. It consumes a lot of time that should really be devoted to teaching, but it's actually being devoted to assessments. And so the underlying question there was around what can we do to minimize the time that is spent on assessments, because we really want to get to the good stuff, which is teaching kids. But it came across in the beginning to, oh, we don't do map testing, we do I-ready. But that wasn't the real objection. They really don't care. At the end of the day, you don't care if it's map or I-ready. What they really cared about is to minimize the time, right, that is devoted to testing, because it's just, it really does not, as a teacher, that's not what you're there to do. You're there to teach. Obviously, you need the data from the tests, but most teachers don't actually use that data anyway. They just do the map testing and then go about their business without actually looking at the results. So that's a different, that's a different tangent we can go on.
Karim,
but that's one example, Josh, right?
Yeah.
That's a great,
go ahead, yeah.
great example. I'm so hearing something here. You know, we're always taught, are we solving for the right problem? But
Yeah.
Karim, I'm hearing you say, are we solving for the deep problem?
Yeah.
Which is really
so
powerful.
My wife is a psychotherapist. She's an art therapist. And her job is always to, right, peel back the layers.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately there's always an emotion behind whatever behavior is going on. And so it's the same thing with objections. That objection, when it comes out, is never the real objection. There's something behind that, and ultimately an emotion, right? And that's what you have to get to in order to truly build a sales process that knows how to handle objections, but ultimately prevent those objections from even coming up in the first place.
Rose knows this very well. We have our signature solution, which is generally in the 6th and 7th week of the Ed Sales Elevation experience. And that signature solution is the clearest representation of your offer. And it's basically built on objections and rejections. So to Karim's point, now that you understand that this potential client is talking about testing, then that could be something that you drop, you know, as a crumb or as a big, you know, piece of bread when you're having your next conversation, and say, you know, we're very cognizant of testing. And so this is not our desire to over test, but ... So we can use that as an opportunity to let people know that we've been listening and we're more aware. Last point here. We've talked about when, you know, it's called stop delegating sales, why founders must sell first or lose pipeline. Now, when is the moment that you can say, I'm ready for somebody to take over? What's that green flag?
If you can repeat it over and over again, then that means you can scale it, right? Because the real key to repeatable, scalable sales process is the repeatable part. If you can't replicate it over and over and over again, then you don't have a process. It hasn't been systematized yet. And only then can you actually bring in your first sales rep, coach them on it, right? And then put them out there, give them the feedback. Because if you don't have a process that you've been able to repeat over and over again and systematize and document, then you can't scale.
And, you know, go ahead, Rose.
Josh was saying that's where I think that Raise Your Hand campaign was really, really successful for us, because it allowed us to test and learn the process of even testing the message. Like for us in my LX technology company, Humanity, we focus on this one pain point, which is less than 15 minutes of every hour of online learning is relevant to the learner and the organization, right? So we tested that, And out of all the other ones we tested, that gave us the most feedback as to, okay, that's better for our sales story and for our pipeline when we start making those partnerships happen. So again, I really feel like raising your hand and really iterating those tests really helpful for us anyways. And it's something we've modeled into our behavior in our business every day. Like we keep testing new ideas and new pain points and making sure that those are relevant to where we're at now in our company.
It's based on what we've heard today and the mind-blowing discussion that Rose and I and others have been on the other side of, especially regarding cold calling. It's almost like we need to get into a large room with 100 phones, and we need to pick up phones and just start cold calling, because that really, if you can do it, if you can really believe that you're targeting the right person and you've got the right messaging and you've got the right offer and your credibility is established, that when you pick up that phone, as much as you don't want to do it, and you start talking, you're not doing anything wrong.
Right.
You're actually doing something very right.
Exactly.
And that's the belief, to Rose's point, I think that maybe we have to get beyond. It's not that I wasn't enjoying this conversation, but I was almost stretching the air because I have been texting Robert on the side saying, get on this friggin' show.
Come on, Robert, get on the call.
Right now. But knowing this guy, he's probably skating on the ice, knocking 20-year-olds into the boards and scoring goals.
Probably.
But he knows, he knows the microphone is always ready for him.
They take their hockey very seriously in Winnipeg.
This
very
dude
seriously.
Certainly does. This dude, well, it's Robert obviously is one of a kind, and I'm excited to be up in Canada. And I told Karim and Rose, I'll tell you because I almost can't believe it, is that Robert and I are going to a Leafs game on Tuesday night before the event. I think it's going to be amazing, and I'm super excited about that. And this has been an amazing conversation and turn of events to have Rose join us. And hopefully people have now begun to understand from some people who have been through this, not only when you should stop delegating, but we also brought it full circle as to now when you can delegate, because most of the folks that we work with here at the Ad Sales Elevation Experience, and I know Karim does as well, and Rose is surrounded by, don't really want to do the sales for that long. But you got to have a repeatable process first. That's what we've learned. So
100%.
thank you everybody for joining us. I always say now that it's a Studio 420. And it's not 420 because of what you're thinking. It's because this apartment is 420. Okay. We happen to live in an apartment. All my buddies are like, oh man, and so was I the first time I heard it. But my wife has been coming back in and out. Our daughter is here. So thank you everybody if you've been bearing with us through that. Karim and Rose, it's been wonderful having you. Really appreciate it. And everybody else, Ben, thank you for joining. Robert, wherever the heck you are, we love you. We missed you. And I hope that everybody has gotten a lot out of this.
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah,
all right, guys. Thank you.
Letting me jump in as well. Appreciate that, guys. See you
soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening.